There are some changes previously. So for about the last 230 years, the census has been primarily paper-based. This is the first time there will be an online response option. So you'll be hearing more about that. So it's a digital response option. In addition, you will still have the ability to have a phone response option and follow up by paper as well. And if people don't respond in those ways, we will have, you may remember, census takers, or what we call enumerators, for follow-up of the response. So there are some changes as well. We're very excited about those technological enumerations that are being able to reach more people so that the census is truly safe and truly easy and convenient, and it is so important for each of us. We're counting every resident in the United States where they live and sleep most of the time. Increasingly, we have a diverse and growing population. In the 2020 census, we expect to count approximately 330 million people and 140 million housing units. Questionnaires are mailed to housing units. So when a person or the housing gets that questionnaire, and they will be mailed out the week of March 12th, the first mailings in 2020. We would ask that the person filling out that questionnaire fills out for every person living in that household. So every person doesn't fill it out, the household fills it out. We want to complete an accurate count. There are some populations we know historically, that historically are not counted fully, and that includes young children, ages 5 and under. We're working closely with the child care councils here and expanding outreach with the school district, because it's so important. One of the reasons that is not unusual. Children might split a location between different households. So wherever a person is living, whether it's a college student and they're living away at college, wherever they are residing on April 1st, 2020, which is Census Day, that is where they'll be counted. I sometimes get asked about snowbirds, people that are go from Rochester or the area and they go other areas in the winter. They would be counted where they're spending most of their time during that year. The law requires the Census Bureau to keep your information confidential. Your responses are only used to produce statistics. They are only released on the statistical level. So when you look at information online, and there is a number of data sources by the Census Bureau, all free to the public, they are released. It will give a income range, or it will give ethnicity or race information, so it is not personally identifiable information. It's released so we can learn more about that community, so decisions can be made as what we talked about. All Census Bureaus take a legally binding lifetime oath, even when we leave employment of the Census Bureau, to protect your information. Anyone who violates that oath could face jail time, a $250,000 fine, or both. So they take the confidentiality, which is the very foundation of the Census Bureau, is taken very seriously. Uses of census information. It determines the number of seats each state has in the U.S. House of Representatives. So our political representation. And it also has helped for drawing school district lines as well, and legislative lines. It defines congressional and state legislative districts, the school districts, and voting precincts. It determines how more than $675 billion in federal funding are spent on infrastructure, programs, and services each year. When you came in, there's an information table in the front lobby. There's an interesting flyer there about New York State. Approximately $73 billion in federal funding is determined in New York State from that decennial count. That includes Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, infrastructure, roads, bridges, where schools will be decided. And I had mentioned talking about the business community. They use this information to cite where businesses will be located. So it's really important to know that. It's so important that we get it right. This data lives for 10 years, if you will. So it's looked back to when they are looking at that federal allocations. That information is so important that we get it right in 2020. And so we've been talking about how it's used and the importance of it, but it's so important that we get it right we're working with organizations like Fight Village, League of Women Voters, the Faith Alliance, Community Alliance, to help us get that word out, and we very much appreciate it. It informs government, business, and community planning and decisions. It provides business and nonprofit organizations with critical information. I've been working with some of the different nonprofit organizations, and they're taking the lead to talk to organizations because they use the data that's collected during the 2020 census when they're going for grants for different plans or programs in a community. For example, if they're requesting a program for the senior community, we want to let people know it's safe and convenient, because if they're developing a program, it will look at a neighborhood. So if people aren't fully filling it out, that neighborhood might look younger than it is. So it's important that everyone fill it out. Data protection. Responses are protected by federal law, what's called Title 13. As I mentioned, they are only used to produce statistics. Protecting the data we collect is a top priority. More importantly, it's the law. The Census Bureau is bound by Title 13 of the United States Code. These laws not only protect and provide the authority for the work that we do, but also provide strong protection for the information that we collect from individuals and businesses. Personal information cannot be shared with any government agency or court. That includes law enforcement, immigration, ICE, or any other, or CIA, FBI. Nothing can be shared with that information with other federal agencies. And that's an important message that we want to talk to our communities about, that this information is safe and it is confidential. As I mentioned, Census Bureau employees are sworn to protect confidentiality. And let's talk a little bit next about the design for the 2020 census. Essentially 4 steps for the 2020 census. It is a new design for the 21st century. As I mentioned, some of the new enumeration technologies, using a digital footprint to help us get that information. It will also make collecting that data kind of more real time, because it is digital based. As people respond to it, we'll be able to track and have a better idea where we're having it is, so that if there's neighborhoods that are not maybe not getting the numbers that we would like to see, we can go out. I can call the bishop, hopefully, and we can say, we're not, at this point, we can look and say, we're not getting the response. What could we do here in this community right now to improve the response? And that's part of the, I think, really great things. Additionally, to making it easy, we can really, before it's too late, we can actually get in there to be able to access that real-time data. So that's good news for all of us. And that means we're working together for a while. Great, thank you. First, we have to establish where to count. We identify all addresses where people could live. This step will create our final list of addresses where we expect a response for the census. We maintain a master address file, which is updated throughout the decade using Postal Service updates. Once we establish where to count the population, we need to then motivate people. That's partly what we're doing tonight. Do you feel motivated yet? Well, we'll work on it. He's motivated. And that's really the outreach for this partnership activities and working with communities as we move forward here to inform and motivate. So in addition to this grassroots partnership activities that we're doing at all levels of government, nonprofits, the schools, basically everyone, businesses, everyone that will hopefully be touched. So people will hear the message, hopefully more than once, in more than one location over the next year. So that when mid-March comes, they'll know, and they've heard this is something that takes maybe 10, 15 minutes, fill it out, hopefully online. It makes it easier for you, makes it easier for us, and then we can have a good count and again, talk about the importance of the census for every community. Finally, we have to count the population. We collect data from all households, including group and unique living arrangements. So individually the households, but we also have, for example, if it's a senior community, assisted living, or nursing home, correctional facilities, they're all counted under what we call a group quarters outreach. It's a part of there's several operations as part as we move through the census, so that, again, what we say, everybody counts. We will mail the notifications in mid-March, inviting households to go online. And a few reminder mailings will be sent. So the first mailing you'll get will actually be a letter. There will be a 12-digit identification number for each address. And you can go online and fill that out. If you happen to misplace that, no problem. You can go in online or go to your, we're going to be working with different organizations and libraries. You can go in and you put your cross-reference of your address with a cross-section street so that you can put it in and still do it that way. Altogether, 5 mailings will be going out. The first one, the online outreach, and then we'll also include the phone information and mailing, so there'll be reminder postcards. And the 4th mailing, if we haven't heard from you, a paper questionnaire will be mailed to that address. And then a reminder, 5th one, on the postcard. And if we haven't heard response back by then, that's when we send out our census takers or the enumerators, what we're familiar with. Okay, but hopefully we're trying to get people early on. And if you don't want people knocking at your door, fill out the form and have it done, and that helps you, it helps us, and that'd be great. Responding to the 2020 census, language assistance. In terms of responding to the census, we have developed a strong language assistance program to help us get the best possible self-response rates. The online response will be supported in 12 non-English languages, as well as our telephone questionnaire, assistance in Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, Russian, Arabic, Tagalog, which is Philippine, Polish, French, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, and Japanese. There will be mailings in bilingual in both English and Spanish. There is also language guides in other languages. So these in the middle of the screen, you can see, as I mentioned already, there's other languages, about 50 right now, that will be supported online with language guides. And again, there will be the telephone guides if people have questions. The phone response is also new this year, 2020 census. So we're really giving people different options to respond to hopefully get this full and complete count. Looking ahead to Census 2020, we are there. It is time. We are putting together, I'll be talking a little bit about our complete count committees. We'd love to have one here at Fight Village. It's really, the census occurs on, like I mentioned, the community room here. It happens here, and you going out and talking to people and just saying, hey, this is easy, I heard a conversation, and let's have everyone participate. Here's a summary of the key milestones as we prepare for the 2020 census. In 2018, we officially launched the partnership program. We're reaching out to establish partnerships and begin forming complete count committees. That is happening now, every day. We're hoping that every county will have a CC, but every organization, it could be literally neighborhood associations. I've been talking to neighborhood associations. They really, I love working with them. They really just want what's best for their community, and we go in and can do a presentation, and they feel comfortable as we move forward. It can be very formal. Larger governments might have a more of a contract type thing. It doesn't have to be that. It can just be very informal, meet periodically. We could come in and do a presentation, but the goal is that that complete count committee takes ownership of their group and can get out there, and they have the best ideas what would work best to get out the information. As operations ramp up, we'll begin to recruit and hire staff throughout the region. We are very actively recruiting. I will talk about that in just a few minutes. We are looking for everyone's help. In Monroe County, we're looking to hire approximately 2,000 people. Again, all temporary positions. There is a Rochester office opening in the city of Rochester, in downtown. It is on a bus line. Can't give the exact address yet, but it's right downtown. And we're actively recruiting that. We are going to be, we have a recruiting table in the back. We have a couple people here, Alina and Aaron, helping us out tonight. I can answer all your questions about how to do that. The Attain Lab and here in the Baden Community Center has been actively, almost weekly. Oh, there she is, Alicia. Alicia Ward is the manager of the Attain Lab, and she's been very helpful, almost weekly for a couple months now, having one of our recruiting assistants come in and can help people right there in the computer lab. They're taking a little break this summer. They're here still this week, so everybody that didn't get a chance tonight can go over there and use the lab. But they will become an active site for us for helping to respond to the 2020 census. That's exactly the type of partnerships that we're looking for. And we appreciate that very much, and thank you for being here. In 2019, we'll continue to ramp up for the 2020 census by continuing to onboard field staff and open the remaining field offices, while we continue to build our pool of partners. In early 2020, there will be a large media campaign. There's a third party that's been hired by the U.S. Census Bureau, about $500 million media campaign that will kick off very vigorously in January 2020, a little bit late 2019, to help the partnership with the grassroots that we've been working on for almost 2 years before that media campaign, so that people will be able to have the information that they need to complete the questionnaire. The Census Day is April 1st, and then we will begin knocking on doors in March and continue through July. So through the summer, if we haven't heard respondents, that's when we go out and follow up, and that will continue really late April and go into end of summer. The apportionment counts are delivered to the President of the United States by December 31st, 2020, and a few months after that, we have to get the information to Congress for delivering the information they make for redistricting the counts. Area census offices, I kind of jumped ahead here. I did mention we're having a Rochester office opening here. Headquarters for the New York region is in New York City. The region of New York, we call it the New York region, but it is the northeastern states, and it happens to be located in New York City. And in upstate New York, the main office that first opened was in Albany, and by late July, we expect to open the Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo offices, and that's where I mentioned. Now, we're not going to have 2,000 people work in the office like that. They all are temporary jobs. The vast majority will be the enumerator jobs next summer. They last about 8 to 12 weeks, but in addition, there are office jobs because it's here. There are field jobs that include the enumerator positions, but field supervisors in the office will need office supervisors and office clerks. So and actually both Alina and Aaron could fill you in about different pay rates for those different positions, and I'm going to get to the next slide. It talks about how to apply for that. All applications are done online. We are now, the census office staffing is hiring now through spring of 2020. There are 2 different websites to be aware of. The usajobs.gov site is for my position, and we are hiring for more partnership specialists. And that is done through the federal government website, and that includes management positions. Don't forget, we're opening up an office in Rochester here, so there's going to be management positions for that. That's more of a traditional resume interviewing process. All other positions are through 2020census.gov/jobs. There are some challenges to the 2020 census environment. Some we could be aware of, and some are somewhat new. As you can imagine, this will be a different census, and as we plan our approach, we will have to be aware of other upcoming challenges. The 2020 census will be conducted in a rapidly changing environment, requiring the Census Bureau to be flexible, to be able to navigate our way to a successful 2020 census. And as we thought about planning the census, we must design the census for both the environment today and what we believe the environment to be like at the time of the census. This image displays some of the predicted constraints that we have identified as we begin the design of the 2020 census. A few of the challenges we are experiencing include declining response rates. There's a lot of reasons for that. People kind of feel over-surveyed. We need your help to let people know this is the one that counts. You count, this is the questionnaire that counts. Response rates for Census Bureau surveys and for surveys and censuses in general have declined as people are overloaded with requests for information and become increasingly concerned about sharing information. People are inundated with information, and one more request is just that, one more request. We recognize that we need to combat the apathy and motivate people to respond. Planning for the increasingly complex living arrangements and populations. Households are becoming more diverse and dynamic, making it a challenge to associate an identified person to a single location. I work the 2020 census, a different part of the state is in recruiting, And there was not a couch surfing app at the time. The world has changed. And, people are transitional, and we know that. And so we want to count everybody. So some people will be able to be identified from a questionnaire that goes to their households, but we need your help to make sure that everybody is counted. You may know somebody, and we want to get them counted and sharing that information with them, because there are people that we want to count in those traditional, some of the, what we call hard to count populations for enumeration, are the very people that can most benefit by the funding that's received from federal funding. So we need your help to do that. We have a very mobile population. Based on data from the American Community Survey, about 12% of the population moves in a given year. Constrained fiscal environment, there are budget deficits, and a recovering labor market has placed pressures on funding available for these types of programs. Information explosion, rapid changes in information technology, and the importance of us sharing with you that your data is secure and safe. We have the best and the brightest working both in the private and public sectors to protect your information. When I'm talking about the cybersecurity. Distrust in government. There are concerns continue to grow about information security and privacy, the confidentiality of information given to government, and how government programs will use the information collected. Increasingly diverse population. We have continues to increase in complexity, resulting in a growing number of households and individuals who do not speak English as their native language. We have a wide variety of cultural traditions and mores who may have varying levels of comfort with government involvement. And the rapidly use of technology. This last challenge is to point out today's technology. This is a census that we are infusing with technology throughout the entirety of the census, which brings innovation, new ideas, efficiency, and increased quality, but it also brings a challenge. We are building technological advances are built today, yesterday, or last year for a census we're going to conduct in 2020. This is a challenge we've had to take into consideration as we plan the census. Overcoming obstacles through partnerships. Your trusted voice is what we're working with to encourage everyone's participation. The bishop's leadership, the minister's leadership, the League of Women Voters leadership, the Faith Alliance community, they're all perfect examples of the trusted voices that we're working with on a partnership level. We hope educating, and then hopefully we'll have this group here, and I'll probably get a couple calls tomorrow, and they'll have maybe their place of worship or their employment will call and say, could you come and do a presentation for us? Wonderful. That's what we're here for, to spread the word, and we appreciate you being providing us the opportunity tonight. We know we are facing many challenges ahead, and we also know that we cannot conduct the census alone. That's what our partnership program is about. While this is a national effort, the census is completed at the community level. We are reaching out and developing relationships with local leaders and the stakeholders. Partners have knowledge and insights of your community that the Census Bureau may not necessarily have. Yes, we are the source of data, but the insight of that, the who's and the whys, is like that, and maybe the best way to reach in that comes from you. We need our partners' help to raise awareness of the 2020 census and to motivate your members to respond. Our partners' trusted voices carry weight and influence in the community. When you share our messaging, the community will listen. The local knowledge and insight of the community to reach everyone is the four main issues: the impact of a complete count for the community, a 2020 census that will count every person living in the United States, the privacy and confidentiality of responses, and employment opportunities. Those are the four main messages that we hope to share with you tonight and for you to help us share as well. We've talked a little bit about our partners in a general way. Basically everyone can fall under one of these or help with their liaisons. Elected officials, colleges and universities, school districts, libraries are really taking an important role as well this time because the digital response option. Community organizations and media outlets. Some partnership initiatives. There are a number of things that we can do for complete count committees, and these are examples of some of them. Some you can see. American Indian and Alaska Native program, community networks, faith-based groups, foreign-born immigrant programs, higher education programs. There's a number of things that we can share and develop programs, and we have a number of materials to help you do that. How we support our partners. We know that our partners are very busy, and we want to ease the burden on our partners, so we provide as much as information and materials as possible. We can provide you materials to deliver the census message. We have developed drop-in articles for newsletters. We can help you if you want to put out an email blast. If you want to make a connection on your organization's website, a link to the census when we come to that time. You can provide jobs information on your organization's website. There's all things that we can help you and support you with. There's an online for partners 2020 materials you can look at and see. And we can be the relationship person, connection. I'm local here, I'm here in Rochester. We have people throughout the state helping with partnership, and there's more people coming. Here's some examples. Participate in a complete count committee, host events like tonight, allow the Census Bureau to participate in events and speaking opportunities, and again, share the message on social media and newsletters, help us with census operations and recruiting and our response activities. What's a complete count committee? It's a group of government and community leaders who have come together to raise awareness. And who should be on complete count committees? Elected leaders, school departments, libraries, workforce development organizations. We have a number of, almost every county is now helping us with workforce development. The cities are being very helpful with providing space and personnel to help us get out the word about recruiting. We're very appreciative of that. Immigrant organizations, faith-based leaders, senior services, community development, in short, everyone down to a neighborhood could create, anyone can create a complete count committee. How do you get started? Appoint a chair, meet, we can provide you resources, and then hopefully you can take on that operation on yourselves. There's subcommittees, all sorts of separate subcommittees that can help with this as well. There's a flyer out on the back table. It's what we call the Response Outreach Area Mapper, or ROAM. And that is a way to help our partners and you. You can go in, everything's free at census.gov/ROAM. And you can go into what we call census tracks. And this is one I actually pulled up, and you probably can't see that in the back, but I just randomly selected one in the city of Rochester. What the dark blue census tracts here are what we call, we had low response rates in 2010, so much of the city of Rochester, and there's different reasons, and we really working with the local community leadership to help us maybe figure out why and what we can do to improve response in 2020. But this is a way that you can help look at, it's really helpful information for school districts to zero in and do a deep dive and figure out where are the areas we need to work on the most. Data dissemination program is a free resource to you. Opportunities to teach the public how to access their data. We can do presentations, workshops, and webinars. All information is www.census.gov. There's lots of data information that can help many people for different reasons. Again, nonprofits use it for grants. Government uses it for planning. And those are available. And they just started what's called Census.gov Academy. If you really want to look at it, there's webinars online, and they can help you access that information and have a better understanding of your community. Connect with us. We are on all social medias. Please join with us on the social media. We'd appreciate that, and keep information. There's some great things that you could share on YouTube and that you can share with your organization. This is how you contact us, the partnership program. If you want to see me individually, I have my own email as well. But I appreciate you very much for the opportunity to be here this evening and learn more, and we look forward to your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce Bridget Early. You heard an awful lot about how it's going to be run and how you can participate, but Bridget's going to give you the real information of why it's important. And so Bridget is with the children's agenda, and I'll ask maybe the lights to be turned back on, and then she can again give you some information that I think you'll find very useful.
Good evening. Thanks for coming tonight. I'm happy to be here with my leaders on site. I want to tell you a couple stories about why the census is important. My role, my portion of the evening will be much quicker and not nearly as in-depth in terms of the census itself. I do want to just give you a feel for why we think it's really important for people to participate in the census. So the Children's Agenda, the organization I work for, is an advocacy organization for children. We don't work with children directly. We spend every day at work trying to get legislation changed, trying to get more funding for children's services, and so we use census data quite a bit. About a year ago, maybe not quite, 8 or 10 months ago, I was speaking at a church, and it was a very general talk that I was giving about children, and particularly children living in poverty in Monroe County. And so I cited some statistics that many of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with because it's in the D&C all the time about the fact that more than half of children in the city of Rochester are living in poverty. The next day, I received a phone call from a gentleman, very nice, but he said, "I don't believe you." He said, you must be wrong. I need to see where you got that data from. Because I've lived in this community my whole life, and there is no way that half of the kids are living in poverty in the city. So, of course, I was able to share with him from the census data sheet that yes, indeed, that the poverty rate for children in Rochester Hub is around 50%. And he came in, he met with me, he learned more. He was a retired tradesman, I can't recall, maybe carpenter, stonemason, something, and he ended up starting an apprenticeship program for young men to learn a trade. So that's my best census story, I gotta say. It doesn't happen all the time, but I think it is a good one. Another story is the Children's Agenda was working with our Interfaith Collaborative to try to convince Monroe County government to spend more money on child care subsidies, because many families where whether it's a single parent or two parents, where all the adults are working, obviously they need child care, someone to care for their children. There is an assistance program available through the county, and we thought and still think there should be more assistance available. And so we put together a chart that showed the lowering amount of child care subsidy dollars that were allocated in the county budget, right? It's going down. Against that same chart, we put the annual poverty rate as reported in the US Census, because as Susan said, the 10-year census is the big deal, but every year there's updated data available. And it was like this. So really good representation, we thought, for people who don't understand the problem, maybe aren't even all that interested in knowing the details, but it was immediately clear that it was crazy that we were reducing child care assistance at the same time that child poverty was growing and growing. So I literally use census data almost every day. I mean, it's a really important part of the work we do because we are trying to convince policymakers, funders, elected officials that of the reality of what life is like for many families in this community. And it's very important that they understand that we aren't making this stuff up. We're not talking about, a survey we did of, 30 people who we know, and this is really important that we have very independently derived data so that they know, they have a good sense of what is happening. It's important for other reasons as well. For example, I don't know if you all know, but teen births have dropped dramatically in the last decade. Honestly, there is no, identified single reason why that has happened. It's a little bit mystifying, but it's really important that we know that, because we don't need to be spending as much money on teen parenting now. So, anyways, that was just a couple stories to give you a sense of how we use it. I'm just going to make a couple of points here. Susan mentioned the importance of census data for federal funding, and I want to make sure you understand just how important it is. Personally, I feel like the number one reason is that it determines how many congressional districts each state has. So let me just cut to the chase here. You know, right now we have the 25th district, which is mostly Monroe County, represented now by Joe Morelli. Probably after this census, I think we all need to accept the fact that our census, our congressional district is going to get larger. We may be linked with Buffalo more. We may reach over to Syracuse, but the reality is New York State is losing population. And so we may, so we may lose a congressional district in New York State, and that is bad for us. So we certainly want to make that, minimize the damage there. So everyone needs to be counted. But more relevant to our day-to-day life is the government funding, which I'll get to in just a second. Again, business decisions, jobs. Businesses want to know where are the consumers, so they look at census data. Monitoring civil rights violations, important to have census data. Funding for college grants. Transportation. Where should we put a new road? Where should the bus routes go? Social Security projections and health information. Okay, Title I, now I'm just going to list these because you've been talked at for a while now. Title I grants for education, funding for special education in school districts, Head Start programs, child care funds, the child care funding that I just spoke about. There's a good chunk of that comes from federal funds. SNAP and food stamps, school lunch, Medicaid or CHIP in New York State, the Children's Health Insurance Program, Section 8 housing, and foster care funding. Okay, a couple of facts that Susan already made. The fact that the Census Bureau does not share information with any other government agency. It does not, how can I say? So have you heard about how there might be an immigration question? I don't know how many folks are aware of that, but they're debating right now whether they're going to add a question to the census form saying, are you a citizen, a U.S. citizen? They want to count that person. We want to count everyone who's here, right? So citizen, not citizen, doesn't matter. If you're here, you need to be counted. We want you to be counted. So there's no concerns about, they will not, the Census Bureau will not share that information with ICE. Okay. And the populations that are least likely to be counted. Number one, children under the age of 5. So think about the implications of that. Again, for child care, for special education funding, for general education funding. African American men are more likely to be undercounted than other populations. I have a chart here that's similar to Susan's, but I'll just pass it around so you can see. So this is most of Monroe County. It doesn't show the whole entire county of Monroe, but the places where there's color are under hard to count districts, those districts where they know that they don't count everybody. And so I'm just going to pass this around. You can take a look. Obviously, it's the city districts that are most undercounted. And the last thing I just wanted to say was that the number one reason, when they surveyed people to say, did you participate in the census? Yes. Why did you participate in the census? The number one reason was a trusted person in my community told me to participate. So I just want to make that clear that we're all responsible for telling our friends and neighbors about this. This is real. This will affect your life. It will affect this community. And I hope you participate. Thanks.
Thank you for putting it
questions. And just to summarize maybe a tiny bit, when I heard how underrepresented 5 years of age children and below, it's really frightening because it only happens every 10 years. That's almost a child's entire school career. And the census numbers that are reported help count every child that is in need of these services, So give me the mic. And Title I, special education. You know, so many of our children get breakfast and lunch and other meals provided. These numbers drive the big pot. We can't control how the pot is distributed, but if the pot's not big enough, we know a lot of services are not going to be granted. So I think what we have heard in the past is some of the barriers are fear of how that information will be utilized, that if maybe someone you know perhaps is not living in a facility that's totally up to code, and so they're afraid to fill out an address. Well, that's a fear you don't need to have, because they're not being reported to housing authorities and things of that nature. I'm correct in that, right? Both of you. So again, I thank you for your attention before we go to questions. But it is just so important, particularly for families, to be aware of how important being counted is. And the League is very committed to hoping every person is counted. I do want to, yes, just, okay, yes, your question.
Oh, I didn't want to get,
No, because I was just, thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned unique living quarters. Will people that are incarcerated, will they be counted in the census? And
I think Susan will answer that for you.
And where does the count get tabulated? If I'm in Bedford Hills or if I'm from the Rochester community. So where does that get tabulated and give credit to or whatever? And in terms of African American men most likely to be undercounted, you all know about mass incarceration, so it kind of ties it in to the prison system in terms of, does the count go to the rural community where most of the prisons are, even though they are from major urban cities like Rochester and Buffalo?
Can you ask her? Okay, I can answer it, and I would glad to have my colleagues this evening to jump in how correctional facilities are counted. If they are county or state, the residents there are counted from where they're from. And we work with the administrators of those facilities. If it's a federal facility, then people are counted in the location of the facility. That's my understanding. Somebody knows something different, but that's my understanding. If somebody has other, you had some other parts to that question, I may not know the answer, but maybe some other people do. You had, so there was a second part.
I was just concerned that people that are incarcerated, living in the rural areas, that they would be counted in those counties as opposed to the cities from where they came. So you're telling me that those incarcerated in state-run facilities,
county or state, are counted. So if you're from a few counties or wherever, they're counted where they're from.
right? Okay.
If it's a federal correctional facility, then it's counted at the location of the facility.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank
Does
you.
that help? Yeah.
Any other questions? We have three right over there.
Do you account for homeless populations in some manner?
Absolutely, and we need your help with this. There's Census Day I mentioned was April 1st, 2020. There is a homeless overnight. It's March 31st to April 1st, and we will send out teams We're working right now, connecting with homeless shelters, the leaders of that, so we know how it is. We have a database we're adding to that. But there are locations where people go that we don't know about. So that's why leaders that work in those facilities, like Open Door, and there's certainly more. There's a lot of faith-based organizations that have outreach programs, so work with them. So when we go out for that, we can as well. But absolutely, again, we want to count everyone. Absolutely everyone. Go ahead. And then, please jump in here.
And maybe you can repeat the question, Susan, so everyone is heard.
Okay, I'm very concerned about the citizenship question. A couple questions regarding that. First, has it been decided whether or not they're going to put one in? And you're saying, you're shaking your head, no? Hasn't been decided. Pardon? No, wait, no, I haven't. Yes, if it is going to be on there, I'm concerned about people who have green cards, who are on a path to citizenship, but do not have the citizenship. They should be counted.
They should be and they will.
There'll be a subtitle of the green cards. And I know there are people who've been here for years and they just didn't bother to become a citizen. So I'm concerned about people not, answering that.
Thank you. Those are wonderful questions, and I think on many people's minds. Right? There were oral arguments before the Supreme Court on April 23rd. They are expected to make a decision by later this summer, hopefully by July 1st, the very practical manner of we have materials to print. We don't know. I don't know if it'll be on. We are counting everybody, period. The Census Bureau does not care your citizenship yet. We want everyone to, and that's where the importance of these community conversations go back to what Bridget was saying and I was saying, and the importance of, it doesn't matter if it's the gender question, ethnicity question, race question, or potentially a citizenship question. That information is protected and safe and secure. All right, so we know it could, but the information right now is we don't know if it will be included or not. That's the answer. But we want to, with these types of conversations, make people understand that they feel comfortable that their information is private and confidential. It is the very foundation of the Census Bureau, the confidentiality.
In the back there?
Yeah.
We'll go with this lady first and then back here.
I understand that the main problem is response rate, that you have a dwelling that you know that people are living in and they're not responding. But do you have anything like a provisional census analogous to a provisional ballot if someone realizes that they haven't been contacted, that for some reason, and can volunteer their information or get information from you that they can fill out?
Absolutely. When there's a phone response option, there will be, in other words, are we missing them in some fashion? They just are
Right.
somehow, again, there's a transitional, for lots of reasons people are in transition of life. Those are the hardest to count. There's a lot of reasons for it. And we're really, they can just, there'll be an online response option. Some sort of an address that they could put in there. Could be a cross-section of that kind of thing, because that's how we count by, is an address mailing going out. So yes, we want to improve that for 2020 and get up those response rates. So hopefully from online or phone or mail or can contact so that they get contacted, or we'll be working with lots of organizations. So those are those people in transition, life transition, whether, and there's lots of reasons. They're hard to count, even young people that are in sort of that college to adulthood, where are they staying? Maybe at their grandparents' house. If they're staying at their grandparents' couch, great. Their grandparent gets the thing, and all the residents, and that's where they happen to be on April 1st, that's where they get counted. Even though they may not technically have the thrill of paying a mortgage yet. Yes.
How are people serving in the military in other countries counted?
I don't have all the answers for all of this stuff. To the best of my knowledge, it's somewhat like they will have outreach, and that there is a program so that we work with the military, obviously very closely. And that they're, again, the sort of leadership of, like we do group quarters, there's the administrators of that share that information so that everybody is counted. Exactly how that program works, I don't have that. I could find out if you want to get your information to me, I could follow up on you. I don't have the, other than guess that they're counted. I think there was a hand up. Did you finish your, I'm sorry, go ahead. Alicia.
I just want to distribute the information.
Oh, yes, please. Let me introduce Alicia Ward, is the manager of the Baden Street Attain Computer Lab, and she's got some important information about where people can go to apply for jobs.
So good evening. Yes, I'm Alicia Ward, and I manage the SUNY Attain Computer Lab at Baden Street Settlement. And the Attain Lab is now located at the Clinton Baden Community Center, 485 North Clinton. So it's 2 blocks away. And on tomorrow, we will have, as we have had for the last couple of months, we will have Census recruiters who will be there from 12 noon to 4 o'clock p.m. that will be there to assist, as well as individuals completing the census job application. So if you know of anyone who is interested in one of those jobs, they can come tomorrow, or they can come throughout the duration of the application period. So that's what I wanted to share, and I have flyers, so you can take a photo of the flyer, you can tweet it, you can email it, you can Facebook it, and encourage everyone. If you want a job, census jobs, they're coming, they're well-paying. You don't have to have a high school diploma, you don't have to have a resume, you just have to, and you just have to be 18 years of age, and the governor will do the rest. So, you said,
Thank you for sharing.
485 North Clinton. So also, I have other information for other jobs. So at the Attain Lab, I assist individuals with creating resumes, cover letters, doing that online job search. We have Rosetta Stone, which is foreign language, so you can utilize Rosetta Stone and learn whatever, almost one of 50, 60 languages that we have in Rosetta Stone. You can learn keyboarding and get Microsoft certified at no cost, and get those exams for Microsoft certification at no cost to you. There is no income requirement. So I always ask, who likes paying taxes? Raise your hand. These are your tax dollars at work. So utilize your tax dollars. A lot of times individuals say, well, I don't get anything for free. Come to the Attain Lab.
Yes, and then there.
My recollection from 10 years ago is there were some questions about an attempt to correct for expected undercounts. Are the numbers that are delivered exactly those counted, or do they make some correction because certain populations are expected to publish it?
Somebody in here didn't catch the whole thing, you're talking about
saying,
corrections.
Do they adjust any of the numbers for anticipated undercount, or are the numbers used in the census precisely those that are counted?
They're used precisely
Okay.
as is, and that's why we don't make numbers up.
I know you don't make them up.
No, I know, I didn't mean to say that. I didn't make it to sound flippant.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. We make no, we don't make adjustments. We use accurate and complete data, and it comes back to everybody counts, and fill out your form, please. And sometimes people will say to me, they filled it out, and here's that. As soon as you get it, fill it in online and send it in, and you'll be counted. But the importance, your comment really reiterates the importance of filling it out, because we don't fill in what we think it might be. It is what it is, what the data shows us.
Any other questions? We'll bring the mic to you.
You may not know this, but I was surprised to see Russian as one of the dominant languages in the country. So it kind of led into my next question. Since you're using technology for the first time, and we all have heebie-jeebies about, technology these days, is the technology that you're using going to be contained within the government? Or is it farmed out to some big tech?
No, this is all government. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. As soon as information is collected, it is encrypted immediately and put behind firewalls government. We have very secure databases and constantly updating for protection of your information. We certainly recognize that that would be something that people would question, and that's one of the reasons for these community outreaches, to let people know that the security of your information, the technology is secure, along with the law that protects your information. And I would just sort of kind of informate with, we know that in the census, outside organizations will try to pretend they're the census, and there'll be scams out there. There has been in the past, there will be again. Let me just share with you, if somebody said, we never ever ask for Social Security information. We never ask for banking information or credit card information. If somebody's asking that, it's not us. It's not us. Another thing to let you know, if you're not sure if somebody comes to your door and they says, remember we have ongoing surveys I told you about, even in between. There's toll-free numbers that people can call to verify. We know where people are all the time. There's a reporting system. We got trackers on us basically. So we know we are at all times, so we can verify that information. If you're not sure if somebody's coming to your door, that they are who they are, say they are, so we can verify that to make you feel comfortable, understandably. So thank you for that question. The language thing I don't know about. The data says that's what it is, and that's where we're developed the language support programs from, because that's what the data says. We are a data-driven organization. We let that data tell us what we need what type of programs we need.
Susan, I have two questions about technology. The first is, will you be sending emails out to people? Or if someone gets an email that says it's from the Census Bureau, click here, is that just a phishing scam like the things we get allegedly from our bank? Will you ever be contacting us?
I'm not aware of them sending out it for the questionnaire. I personally send out emails to people.
Yeah,
but so I'm not. No, it's all you'll be getting from the United States Postal Service on the week of March 12th. There'll be staggered mailings because we don't want everything going out through the Postal Service all on the same day. So starting that week, though, is when the first of those 5 mailings got. If you respond right away, you're not going to get the second, third, or fourth mailings. You'll have been taken off, and that'll be getting it. But it's a mailing response.
Okay, so I hope then that you'll be doing a lot of publicity, telling people if you get an email from the Census Bureau, don't click on it, because it's going to happen.
The questionnaire does ask your name, it asks your age, and there is a spot to ask your phone number. And the reason for the phone number, we're not sharing that information. We will sometimes call to verify the information. We do have a quality control program. Okay, but again, not shared, it's just for us to make sure that we got the information, but it goes back to never ask for a Social Security number. Okay, then you know it's not us. You should never be giving that out to anybody anyway, period. Adam, do you want to say something? In the back. I'm sorry, you had a second question.
Yeah, that was just. So we probably all have the experience, you're filling out a form online, and you get interrupted by something. By the time you get back to it, it times out, you have to start all over again. Or you lose your internet access before you click submit. Some things let you come back in and it's saved what you've done along the way. What are you going to do?
Saved and not sent yet? I will have to get back to you on that one, Judy. I honestly, I know there's an answer for it, but I don't know it off the top of my head, so I don't want to give you erroneous information. I'd have to check it in and get back.
Because that will get people, it will not help your response rate if you try it once.
Let me get back to you on that. I honestly don't know. Yes?
Do you anticipate, like, the Trump administration, do you anticipate the Trump administration trying to force information out of you? And what are the legal protections? Does he have the authority to get information from this agency if he decides to try to force information?
The Census Bureau is apolitical. We have
I personally have no opinion, and the Census Bureau doesn't have an
I'm talking legal access, like, does he have the authority? You can be apolitical, but does he have the authority?
The Title 13, which I mentioned, it protects your information. It would literally take an act of Congress to change that. That's the answer.
Okay, thank you.
How many questions are on the form?
How many questions? On the survey. 11, maybe 12. Again, the final questionnaire format is yet to be determined. We'll know by end of summer.
It looks like our questions are done.
Thank you, everyone.
I just borrow the mic for a second. Thank you so much. I do hope you found tonight's program informational or, educational. And if you leave here with any information, I hope you will take with you the importance of completing the census. The data collected is important and for so many reasons for adults, senior citizens, and primarily our children. So I do hope that you found it helpful. Our program will be on the League of Women Voters YouTube channel. We will present a copy for Fight Village. And I do want to thank Susan and Bridget, and of course Bishop Davis and Minister Florence. And we are delighted to have opened up and maybe expanded our collaboration with this community, because we are very much committed in working together. And we actually have a continued program coming up on Saturday, on May 25th, and it is between the League's Get Out the Vote Committee and voter registration. We'll be working with community members and going to a door-to-door registration process in Legislative District 22, which is what this community is in. And just so you know what will happen, the volunteers will knock on doors to register voters, will invite people to receive occasional texts or other voter information. We will deliver a I am a voter, join me lawn sign to anyone that is interested. We'll do on-the-spot lookups for people who are on parole to see if they are eligible to vote. We'll provide information on who will be on the ballot and how to find out more about the candidates. And we're very excited about this opportunity. And it will happen this Saturday. And you can start the event at 12:30 right here at the Community Center at Fight Village. So once again, we thank them for their cooperation. So we'll assemble at Fight Village in teams of 2, ideally one from the actual community and another from the voter registration group and get the vote out group. So teams will return materials to the organizers at Fight Village by 3:15. And then voters we register will be eligible to vote in the June primary. So the timing is important. That's why it's Saturday, even though it may not be the most convenient for some because of Memorial Weekend. But we plan additional activities. So to let us know you're coming, and I hope you have something to write with, but it's, should Judy just read it, or?
Down at the table.
It's information on the table, thank you, because it's quite lengthy. I so much want to thank you for having us tonight. The League presents 6 programs a year, and they are of various topics. Next year we are looking at repeating one on census, just because it will be knocking on the door of 2020, but also on affordable housing and on regentrification and gentrification. Because it is going to be the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, we are looking forward to doing a program on some of the less well-known suffragettes, but we won't forget the biggies either, for sure. And so we'll be looking for more programs that will appeal to the community. So, Minister Florence, I'll turn this over to you now.
We had one more comment.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming.